So most creative agency owners fear sales objections, and not because they can't handle them, because they are taught these defensive, pressure-based methods that just don't work. And so here's the truth. Objections aren't real objections. They're actually emotional frames your prospect is stuck in. And when you know how to shift that frame using simple communication psychology methods, the conversation instantly becomes calmer, more open, and 10 times more productive. So today I want to show you some communication techniques that make objections easy to navigate so you can stay calm, confident, and in control of the conversation the entire time. So let's start with what objections really are. They are really just emotional frames. So the reality of any conversation is that the prospective buyer needs to be able to establish a couple of things. First, they need to believe that they are capable of doing the thing. The reality is that they're coming to you because they have a business challenge that they need to solve. And they likely have tried to do this either with another agency partner, they've tried to do this on their own, they have struggled to do so. And the reality is that they are trying to protect themselves and they are unsure, they're overwhelmed, they're anxious about which direction to go. And your job is to allow for them to feel more comfortable, to feel more sure of themselves and in the direction that they're ultimately making so that they can make the best possible decision for themselves. And so your job is to help shift that frame and not to fight it, not to push against them, because the reality is that when you try to fight anyone, they do this, right? They end up immediately locking up and become defensive. And if they are in a defensive place, they are not hearing you. They are not going to shift their mindset at all. They're not going to change their opinion at all. So they need to be calm. They need to be in a place that allows for them to feel more confident. And you need to be in the same place, because the moment that you change your tonality, the moment that you become more anxious, it ends up bringing this anxiety into the conversation. So you need to be able to not try to come to this conversation trying to force them into any direction, but ultimately attempting to allow for them to gain the information that they need in order to make the best possible decision for themselves. And so it's vital that you actually stay neutral. The tone, the pace, your body language, the way that you communicate creates for the space. And so here's the concept, the idea that I want you to take into it, right? Let's say that you had an argument with your partner and you show up to a coffee shop and the person, for better or worse, the person behind the counter is incredibly friendly. They are the most bubbly personality and you just are having a horribly bad day. And this person is incredibly bubbly, incredibly excited. I mean, the birds are chirping and the butterflies are flying and, everything's amazing to this person. And they're meeting you with that energy. And the same is true for your prospects. You don't know the meeting that they just came out of. You don't know the thing that they're currently experiencing. You don't know whether they just had a fight with their partner. And if you were in that coffee shop and you just had a bad day and this person is incredibly excited and friendly, you could either potentially get pushed a little bit in that direction, but more often what ends up happening is it ends up really grinding against you and it makes you feel quite bad and even more aggravated. And so the reality of it is that you actually need to meet them where they are. I'm not saying that you're going to take it to a negative place if they've been in a bad place, but at the very least stay neutral, or the tone in which you're actually meeting them. You have to meet them in the place that they are. Walk into the space with them, because the way that you communicate with them is going to allow for them to feel safe. It's going to allow for them to feel the confidence. It's going to allow for them to be able to meet you and be present in the conversation with you. And so try to mirror their energy without mimicking them, because if you end up becoming too obvious in the way that you're actually mirroring their energy, it ends up becoming even more kind of standoffish, because why is this person feeling like a chameleon and not actually genuine? So be you, but trying to just match their energy level. So if your energy level and you're that person in the coffee shop that is incredibly energetic, just tone it down just slightly. Don't become a different person. Just try to meet and mirror their energy. And so let's start talking about the deframe of the base of psychology kind of technique that we can place here. So I don't want you to rebuke anything or to fight anything that they're ultimately saying. I want you to try to just start to reframe things gently. And you need to use this with permission. Things like this. So, like, can I ask you something? And you always feel free to say no, or you may not want to answer this question. So give them kind of an exit to it. So you want to start to be able to allow yourself to have a different type of conversation with them. Not one where you are trying to explain why you are the best thing, why they should be buying from you, why they should be doing any of these things. Because the reality is that people don't get convinced of anything, right? They have conversations, they try to make the best possible decisions that they can. And if they feel like you are trying to convince them, they're going to put up a wall, and that wall is going to get taller and it's going to get higher, and it's going to become harder for you to be able to get over that wall or break it down. And so the thing that you need to be able to do is allow for them to persuade themselves and not actually become any person that's trying to convince anything. So ask them for permission to ask them a question or take them down a different path. And so you want to start to ask clarifying questions that allows for you to understand the thing below or behind the objection that they've asked. Because most often you have the known problem, the unknown problem, and the hidden problem. So as an example, the known problem could be that they are not generating the number of leads that they need. The unknown problem is the fact that their messaging is not actually resonating. The hidden problem is that they're also not in front of the right audience in the first place that can afford to buy their product. And so the reality of what it is that you're needing to do is that you need to be able to understand each kind of different layer. And so they have to first admit to themselves that they have this problem that needs to be solved, and you need to help them identify it. And the more that you ask, the more that you take interest, intrigue, that allows for you to be able to uncover the things that you need to. So I want you to look at what is the objection, but what is the question behind it? So gently explore what happens if nothing changes, as an example. Let's say that they bring up a pricing objection, right? So here's a common thing that a lot of people bring up is, hey, the price is too high. It's like, completely understand. Can I ask this question? I'm curious as to what exactly you're comparing the price to, or in comparison to what? Or can you tell me a little more? Very simple things that you're showing the bit of interest and intrigue to allow for them to extrapolate. And the more that you know, the better that you can actually answer the question. So ask how it is that they're going to go about making decisions. Ask about why it is that they're looking to accomplish something. Ask what they've tried to do to solve it on their own. Have they worked with another agency partner before? What ended up happening when they worked together? Have they hired someone internally? What ended up taking place when that took place? What happened when they launched this campaign or that campaign? Or take interest of to what's actually going on and making sure that you're understanding more behind the actual question that they're asking, because they're asking it for a certain reason. There's an anxiety, there's a nervousness, there's a problem that's there. And most often they're not trying to accuse you of anything. In fact, they're in this meeting with you, spending their very valuable time with you to try to evaluate whether they should hire you as their agency partner. And so the reality is that they're coming into this with the most genuine of idea, the most genuine of intent here to actually hire you. And so you need to be able to show and be able to have them have an understanding of what happens if the problem grows, what happens if the problem is ignored, what happens if things stay the same, what happens if they do the same thing again by just going in the exact same direction. And so it's important for you to understand how you actually go about having a better understanding. And so once you have taken a bit more of an interest, you can start to remove a bit of the fight, if you will. So you can start to say things like, that really makes sense. And we find it common that people feel this way, or, kind of go that direction. Or another, like, let's look at this together just so that I better understand you've done X, Y, and Z, you've tried A, B, C, and then here's the result that you had. So asking for permission again, would it be okay if we explore that a little bit more and then go deeply into it? So that allows for you to be able to have a soften, defenseless oriented conversation that allows for you to elevate your level of authority because you clearly understand the problem. You're asking the meaningful questions that allow for us to explore the actual problem, to solve the actual issue that they're facing. And then you can start to do a little bit of a change now, because the reality is they first have to believe that they can accomplish it. They first have to understand the problem first that they're having, right? What is the actual defined problem? They have to admit to themselves that they have one and that they need someone to solve for it that allows for there to be a valuable money exchange. They have to believe that they are capable. Then they have to have the motivation to solve the problem. They have to be willing to go through either the sacrifice of resources, finances, the time that it's going to take to do so, potentially even both, and being able to actually walk through that space with you. So now how do we turn their objection into motivation? So now you need to start to get them to articulate their goals and their fears and connect their frustration, hesitation to their deeper business need and consequence. And so allow for them to arrive at the conclusion themselves and don't drag them along. So the way that you can go about this, right, as an example. So let's say that they were specifically looking at doing one specific deliverable or going in one direction from a strategic perspective, and they're trying to mandate to you as an agency, here's the way that you should go about it. And the reality is they haven't considered all the nuances of it. And so you can start to have a bit of a more meaningful conversation to actually allow for them to be motivated. So here's one of the most useful ways to go about it is start to articulate through another client's story. So, the way that you just have described the position that you're in, and now I'm talking to a client, the way that you've just described the position that you're in is that you're looking to be able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And this reminds me a lot of client or past client John or Jessica or whatever. And they were in a very similar position. And the reality is that they had gone through working with an agency partner in the past, just like you. They were looking to be able to 2x their revenue over the course of the next 2.5 to 3 years. This is very similar to you. And their current media that they were buying was not having the amount of effectiveness that they were wanting to. They were over-investing in every single client acquisition. It was costing them an inordinate amount of money that would actually allow for them to not be able to achieve not only their growth goals, but their profitability goals. And so here's the thing that I really want for you is that I believe personally that we need to be able to cut once, but measure twice and make sure that we're going in the right direction. Because frankly, the reality is that I just personally, for you, and I know that we don't know each other very well and that we're just getting to know each other, but I just fundamentally believe that from one business owner to another, that it's fundamental that I do right by you as another human being that's spending the time with me. And so I want to make sure that I give you the right advice. And I don't want to spend your money for the sake of spending it. And so here's the learning lessons that we had throughout this process. And it's very possible to achieve the goal that you're looking for, but we have to do it in the right steps. And so here's the steps to go. It allows for them to be able to reframe the conversation, understand the value that what you're doing, but allowing for them to arrive at the same conclusion via story. And then the final piece here is that we want to start to close calmly and clearly, offer next steps. And you don't want to do so where they end up feeling like they're being backed into a corner. So this is 100% your decision. The way that we would go about next steps is we would schedule a follow-up conversation where we're going to review the plan, or we're going to talk about, you can talk internally, we'll go over any questions that you have, and you can then start to talk about, lay out exactly what the next steps are looking like. Being clear for them to know how exactly you follow through your system for sales, allow for them to make the choice. But make sure that you're not pushing them in a corner and you're not trying to make them feel like they have to make a choice in that moment. And it may even be something as simple as, the answer very well might be no. Just let me know where your mind is right now. So that allows for you to have a better understanding of maybe a call is not the right next step for them, and being able to allow for yourself to kind of ask for the sale without directly pushing them too much. Now that you know how to handle objections without pressure, there's a bigger skill that makes the entire process even smoother, helping prospects understand your value before price even comes up. So if you want to make pricing conversations easy and avoid the "that's too expensive" objection altogether, watch this next video where I show you the exact framework top creative agencies use to communicate value with confidence. I'll see you there.